Mrs. Esther Globerson lives in Akron, Ohio. In 1977, she gave birth to triplets.
I had these babies, and they were born premature. They were born December 20th, 1977. They weren't due until February, the middle of February. When they were born, everything was fine for the first hour, and then the lungs started collapsing on two of the children. So they were very critical, and they were in the neonatal unit at Akron Children's Hospital. They kept having to operate. One lung would collapse. They would blow it up, and then the next lung would collapse, and that was on two of them, two of the babies. One child had a 5% chance to live. He was on a respirator, too, paralyzed, so he wouldn't fight the respirator. It was terrible. That was Neil. He had a 5% chance to live. Lee had a 10% chance to live. And that's all, 90% that he would not make it because they were so sick. Chad was born anemic and in shock. Lee had drained his blood from him, and he had a 50-50 chance because he did not develop the hilum. His lungs were fully developed. But so we sat watch over them, and I was in the hospital, and my doctor, the pediatrician who delivered them, helped to deliver, took me in a wheelchair over to Children's Hospital to see them and then took me back to the hospital because they whisked them away from me before I could even see them. Well, my mother all of a sudden was gone. She had been there for a couple of days, 3-4 days, and then she was gone. She wasn't there, and I was appalled and shocked that how could my mother desert me at this time of need when I needed her, gone, and with no explanation. And I asked my father, maybe he knew, but I guess maybe he promised her he wouldn't say anything. He didn't know where she was. So I was really mad at her. I was really, really mad. And the boys were sick and sick and sick. Well, that was December 20th, 1977, when they were born. And on December 31st, New Year's Eve, we wanted to spend New Year's with our babies. So I got dressed up, and we went to the hospital. And we went into their little isolettes. There were a lot of babies in there in isolettes. They have 2 round holes where you can put your hands through. So we touched them and talked to them. I talked to them constantly. And so then after midnight, right after midnight, we went out to get a cup of coffee. And we were sitting there drinking our coffee, and the doctor came out and said, Mr. and Mrs. Aronson, a miracle has just occurred. Your boys turned around, and they're going to make it. They've come out of danger, and we can now, I remember him saying, we can now tell the world about your children. We were the best New Year's Eve of our lives. That was a wonderful New Year's Eve. Went home, didn't know anything about still my mother. The next morning, she came home, and first thing I said to her is, where have you been? How could you leave? And she told me that where she had been, she went to New York, and she went to see the Rebbe, Menachem Schneerson, and that at midnight, she waited for 3 days. He couldn't see her. There were other people. The third day, he could see her. It was right around midnight, a little after midnight, and she told him who she was and where she was from, and he said a prayer for my boys with her. And my mother also told me that she was all bundled up for respect with they were religious Orthodox, but my mom didn't wear a sheitel. They were not Chabad. They were Orthodox. But my mom wore a big scarf, and she found a big long skirt. I don't know if she bought it or she dressed with long sleeves, and she said she was hot waiting for him. It was winter, but they must have had the heat on high. But she got to see him. He made a prayer with her. He said a prayer with her right around midnight, a little bit after, and that was exactly when the doctors came out to tell me that my boys would live.